one.
Well, hello, you good people. Welcome to the Daily Objective and the Thursday Collective. God, I love the Thursday Collective. And I am honored to be invited to appear with Nikos Sotirakopoulos. Nikos, how are you doing today?
I'm contemplating about what I would do in life if I were not an objectivist activist. So let's figure it out.
It's a great question. Can't wait to hear what you have to say, but I want to say hello also to Paul Guay, the writer. Paul is in the room as well. Paul, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, thank you, Robert. And you?
I am well. Are you ready to contemplate your second career? This is a great question and big surprise to me when I was asked to participate. If you were faced with the prospect of a second career, if you had to stop what you were doing now and do something else, and you know this came up in the early Ayn Rand, in the story, her second career. If you haven't read this yet, well, don't read it now. You've got to listen to this show, but catch it afterward. It is a must read. So much good stuff in this book, The Early Ayn Rand. But it was kind of a knock my socks off kind of question.
Which story is that? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, this story, her second career from the book, highly recommended. This is I'll tell you the basis of the story real quick. Try not to give any spoilers, but Ayn Rand introduces an actress, a very famous actress, a beautiful actress, very successful. And she opens it with the reviews of her latest movie. It's a big success. And the reviewer is saying, well, the film's not so good, the script's not so good, but because it's got Claire Nash, this movie star in it, that makes everything fantastic. So you get the idea. Woman, and she's got a very, I was going to say inflated ego. Well, a healthy ego is a good thing, but no, she's completely believes all the reviews. And she is faced with a challenge that happens over the course of the story. Well, what if, sure, you're great. You're a great actress. You're very successful, but do you really think you've got the substance, the talent to do it again? If you had to start from scratch, and she would say, no, of course, I've got the talent. It's not all just the makeup and the lighting and the publicity. And she gets a chance to try to prove herself again to Winston Ayers, the publicist who challenges her. And it's great because during the course of her stardom, she's become a bit arrogant. During a scene filming her latest movie, she throws this young actress off of the set who annoyed her for various reasons. And as part of the deal, Winston Ayers, our protagonist, says, well, while you are trying to recreate your career, I will take this person who you said has no talent, doesn't ever belong on a movie set again, and I'll see if I can make her a star. You've got to read the story. It's a great story. But every time I read it, I think, man, if I was going to do that, what would my second career be? If I had to start all over again, would I be an IT technician again? Would I be a fast food restaurant manager? See, I already did reinvent myself once, 16 years in fast food, and then went into IT. But I'm more interested to hear, and you tell me who's ready to go first, because Nicos, it sounds like you're still thinking about it. Paul, what would you do if you weren't going to be a successful Hollywood writer? If you had to start over again, would you choose the same career? What would you do different?
So I was looking at the question, which was talking about what we would be doing if we couldn't do what we're doing now. So I had a slightly different interpretation of the topic, because it could be, given that you've already done this, where would you go? So I want to kind of address.
I'm with Paul. It's what we would do if we were not doing this career. Let's say we are banned forever from our profession. What would we do?
So I want to sort of go in both directions. So I looked up the word career, because I think career can be slightly ambiguous. And I got this: an occupation undertaken for a significant period of a person's life and with opportunities for progress. So in that definition, it doesn't necessarily involve remuneration. And even if it were to involve remuneration, not necessarily enough that that's the only thing that you would have to do. So that kind of opens the door as to what one could do. So currently I'm a screenwriter and I'm a teacher. And I don't know if that's two careers or one career. They're related, but I'm doing them sequentially. And teaching involves not only teaching, but giving talks, doing workshops, and doing script consultations. So that's where I currently am. So I thought, okay, what do I see myself as in the world? By the way, this is fascinating to me, and I'm sure it is to you too.
Absolutely.
So I looked at my Facebook self-description, and I have 6 words down, which are writer, actor, director, teacher, husband, dad. So those are the current 6 careers that I see that I'm having. Oddly enough, I'm not making money at all of those. Of course, I make money as husband and dad, but the others are a little bit iffier. And then I think about non-paying things that I would love to do. When I started out in writing, I wrote tons of poems and tons of short stories. And I'd written over 1,000 poems at one point. And my creative writing teacher said to me something like, Paul, you know, you can't make a living at this. This was many years ago. I was a naive kid. This was news. It's like, what? Because I had read about a famous poet who spent a morning putting a comma into one of his poems and spent the afternoon taking it out again. And I thought, that's the type of hard work that I can do. But apparently nobody wants that. So then I thought short stories. And I grew up on science fiction. So I was reading Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, Harlan Ellison, Robert A. Heinlein, and they all started pretty much the same way, which was writing short stories, sending them to magazines like Astounding and Amazing and Analog and magazines like that. And I thought, what a great way to start your career as a writer. Unfortunately, when I was a teenager and about to do that, those markets were pretty much gone. And it was impossible to really make a living doing that sort of thing. So I thought, okay, poets out, short story writer is out, what's left? As a kid, my dad was driving me across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, probably preparatory to throwing me out of the window. And I was a big Three Stooges fan. And I said, I would so much like to be one of the Three Stooges. I said, can you pay money to be a stooge and go on television? And he said, they pay you for that. I thought, what? What? I could be the curly replacement, the Shemp replacement, to get money for that. So that sounded pretty appealing. But I actually didn't become one of the Three Stooges, which I'm sure is astonishing. So later on, I discovered professional wrestling, and I intellectually knew that it was fake with the predetermined ending, but emotionally, I was sucked up into the stories of good and bad. And I so much wanted to be a pro wrestler. There was one tiny problem. I was 5'7" and about 119 pounds. And most wrestlers are at least 5'8" and 120 pounds. And I thought, this is going to be real tough for me. And then when I internalized the fact that the matches were in fact predetermined and it wasn't a skilled contest, I thought, I'm no longer interested in this. So if I could do anything, and talent had nothing to do with it, I think Robert and I were talking before we started, any guy who doesn't want to be a rock and roller, any guy of our rough age who didn't want to be a rock and roller, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? How could you not dream the dream? Especially in the 70s, 60s, maybe the early 80s, because I'm thinking of, you have an art form in which you can put out singles, you can put out albums. Albums are seen as this one unit. You don't just get to choose which songs you want. You listen to the entire album. They have art, they have lyrics sometimes inside. Plus you get to tour. So you get the best of recording technology in terms of you can do a song until it's perfect by your lights, get it done in the studio and have it last forever if you're really talented and really lucky. And you get to go on stage and perform in front of, in my case, it'd be tens of people, but thousands if you're really good, or tens of thousands. I'm also told that apparently there was a sexual magnetism to certain rock and rollers. This escaped me. Clearly, it wouldn't be the case for me, but for some people, that would be fun, apparently, having sex with lots of attractive strangers. I think that would be the most fun career you could have. And one of the reasons that reading about rock and rollers can sometimes be depressing is these people have it all and blow it. And you're going, no, I wouldn't blow it. Let me make my deal with the devil. Let me go on the road. Let me get in the studio, and I'm not going to have hissy fights. And I'm not going to give all my royalties to Alan Klein. And I'm not going to get ripped off by my song publisher. I'm actually going to do this right. So that sounds like a lot of fun. But I really will stop soon, I promise. If I were starting over, if this were the road not taken, I think there are a couple of things I would do differently. One is that I'm an actor, but I never took myself seriously as an actor in terms of a career. So I'm like a good community theater actor. I would love to give acting a shot. When I first moved to Southern California, I auditioned for some non-equity play, and non-paying, non-equity. Everybody in line who was auditioning there was better looking than I, had a real resume, had a professional headshot, had representation, and they were fighting to get cast in a non-paying play. And that kind of took the wind out of my sails. I was thinking, holy crap, this is the Mecca. This obviously is where everybody comes to. There's a lot of good people, really talented people who are better looking than I, more experienced, and are already in. So I kind of wussed out. I wish I hadn't done that. The second thing is, I knew nobody when I got into the film business. I had no contacts. I had no relatives or anything. I didn't know how you even broke in. I didn't have the courage to become a director. And I wish so much I'd been a writer-director, because my career, if I didn't screw up the directing, could have been much different. Directors have way more creative control over the script than the writers do. writer-directors are taken more seriously. And if I could build up a body of work, I was thinking of who do I envy most in the world? Because as we all know, envy is a great emotion. We should have more envy in our lives. And there's two people that two entities I look to in terms of, boy, well done. One is Monty Python. You start out with television sketches, some of which they're wildly uneven, but some of them are some of the best comedy I've ever seen. Then you go into feature films. And then if you're John Cleese, you go into Fawlty Towers and you do feature films like A Fish Called Wanda that have nothing to do with Monty Python. I'm thinking, that is just so wonderful. Everybody knows your name. Everybody knows your face. You get to do the writing. You get to do the performing. And if you're Terry Gilliam, you get to do the directing. That sounds great. And the other body of work, this may raise an eyebrow, that I would love to have is Woody Allen. As a writer, as a director, as an actor, I'm going, oh my God. I think 5 of his films are among the best films I've ever seen. 12 of his films are among my favorite films. I would love to have a body of work like that. So I wouldn't just restrict myself to writing. I would kick myself in the ass in terms of acting and directing as well.
Excellent. Wrestler, rock star, director, all good ideas. And I see how because you're a writer, I'm sure this was intentional. You intentionally made time for Nikos to come up with his own brilliant answer. But before we go there, I've got to say thank you. Thank you to Mary Aline in the super chat with $3. Very much appreciated. Apollo Zeusin with £2 says, make wrestling real again, MWRA. Well, our Lord and Savior, Razi said, wrestling is scripted. It's not fake. It's scripted. Actually, I like that because so much of the athleticism in wrestling is real. It's just the fight that's not.
It absolutely is. Yeah, the scripted is perfect because Hamlet is fake. Julius Caesar is fake. 2001: A Space Odyssey, it turns out, is also fake.
As it happens, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about this afternoon when I talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I want to give Nikos his chance. Again, if you've got there's some great comments in the chat, but they will stand out if you make them a super chat. Put a couple dollars on it. I will read them out, no matter how horrible or terrible they are. Well, maybe if they're really horrible and terrible enough, but isn't that a challenge you want to meet? In the meantime, Nikos, if you were not already an outstanding objectivist intellectual, not just working with the ARCUK, UK, but now with the Ayn Rand Institute, the preeminent organization for Ayn Rand's ideas. But if you weren't, what would you be doing? Or if you couldn't do what you're doing, what would you do?
So I cannot say teacher because this would be teaching. It's so near, it's such a relative field that it would basically mean that I'm doing the same thing. So what I would want to do is completely different from what I thought I'd want to do. So for example, I grew up thinking that my biggest regret is I didn't become a basketball coach. But while I'm doing this job, I realized that doing the job of a basketball coach would be completely out of my league as a character. So you have zero control of your time. And also you have to be basically a good chess player. You have to process very, very quickly a ridiculous amount of information. You need to see moves ahead. You need to care about 12 people. And this would be too much for me. So be careful what you wish for, because once you start a career, you might realize that your dream career is not for you. So leaving this aside, if tomorrow ARI would fire me, and if every single educational institution that I'd appreciate working in told me, no, you're so horrible beyond the pale, we're not having to do anything with you, I think I would be a good traveling salesman. And here is why. So when I was working at the university, I was working a lot with outreach. It was a way for me not to have to teach things that I didn't believe in. So the deal was, look, don't make me teach gender theory or whatever. I will go on weekends, or I will do the things no one wants to do. And this is a deal that worked well. So I found the perfect balance. The perfect balance is I'm going to be a good salesman, and at the same time, I'm not going to say a single lie. So I was not telling to students, it's a great idea to come and study sociology, although technically that was my job description. I was telling my students, I was painting a good picture of what they would get if basically they were my students. So I told them, you're going to get communication skills, you're going to learn how to write good essays, you're going to learn to interrogate ideas. And by doing this, I figured out that this is something that I'm good at. And also, I like doing things that other people wouldn't do, like travel a lot. in a way, this is what I do currently in my ARI job. Usually, I give 1 or 2 talks every week that include traveling for big parts of the year. So I think I would be good at it. And also, there's something nice for me when you travel for work. I'm not a big traveling guy when it comes to tourism, but when you know you have to be somewhere, then for some reason I appreciate and I enjoy it. So if I were not an objectivist, activist slash teacher, content creator, however you want to call it, I would be a traveling salesman, and I think I would be doing a good job selling things without lying. So again, if I could sell a sociology course without telling a single lie, I'm sure I could sell soaps or anything else. Particularly if I believed in it, that would be even better.
Outstanding. I've got to say, the reason I'm in Studio 4 here, usually I'd be in front of the piano because I'm talking about music, but the missus is using that studio for work. Now, she would have been on and told us her thing, but I've got to tell you, she used to work at McCann Erickson, the big advertising agency, before they got absorbed by IPG. And their slogan, you, Mr. Traveling Salesman who doesn't want to tell lies, their slogan was truth well told. Is that a great slogan for an ad agency?
Curated truth.
Truth well told. I love that. Love it. So yes, Mr. Traveling Salesman. I can see it. I can see it because you've got both the energy and the earnestness. People would trust you. Absolutely. Well,
that's a nice compliment. I appreciate it. Seriously.
Yes. Although basketball coach would also be a lot of fun to see. Now we're just hitting the 18-minute mark. We're going to go a little bit over. I know you said bottom of the hour, so I'm just going to say real quick.
18-minute mark for people who don't know. What's my episode on communication?
Yes.
If you read the books I suggested, you know anything above 18 minutes, people start losing their attention. That's the joke, the 18-minute joke.
Right. So we need to make this worth listening a few minutes more. My answer will be easy because it's very similar to Paul's. If I took this question as if I could go back in time a bit, yes, I would be a rock star. But part of the reason why I'm dressed the way I'm is so that you can see nobody wants to see an aging rock star unless they're already in love with them. If it's somebody who's already made it. So it might be too late for that for me. So I would just become a public speaker, a presenter, a writer, a podcaster. That's already starting to sound kind of like my third career. I did that before, but it really is an inspiring story. I'll show the book again in case anybody missed it. If you haven't read the early Ayn Rand and the story, her second career, it is enormously entertaining. But I also mentioned before the show, there was some controversy about this book. There are people who said, especially people who tended to look negatively on the Ayn Rand Institute or Leonard Peikoff, he shouldn't have published this. She never wanted this work published, these unpublished stories. Now, there are 10 different reasons why that's wrong and why the motivations of that kind of statement are suspect. But I will tell you flat out, the value of a book like this is not just, it's really inspiring to see Ayn Rand's progression. And it's laid out chronologically. You see her early stories, which were great fun, but they weren't great stories in terms of being great writing. And you see her become more and more proficient. And by the end, you're seeing early writing for The Fountainhead. You're seeing the story of Vesta Dunning, one of Howard Rourke's first loves. And what it meant for me as I consider, my second career, I want to be a writer. I want to be a podcaster. I want to work with the Ayn Rand Center UK, is that wherever you're starting, you start at the beginning. Ayn Rand was a genius, but she was not a great writer at the start. She was much better than I was after years and years, but there's always a progression. Nobody is born an adult. So for those of you who might be thinking of second careers or who are just learning new skills, a book like this tells me, yeah, there's a progression and you can do it. So super thanks to Gail Parker. Thank you for that $2.99. She says, next time, very cute. I don't know if that means that you're going to have to miss the rest of the show and come back because we went over 18 minutes, or if you're just supporting us, but thank you for that. Roland Horvath is also in with £5.99 and says, if I weren't a software developer, I'd want to be a poet, philosopher, airline owner. For those of you who are new to objectivism or aren't up on it, Boom Supersonic is run by a poet, philosopher, airline owner. That's not that an unusual combination to find in the objectivist community. So all hail Roland in whatever you decide to do. Mary Aline is in for another $2 as well and says, Razi Why wouldn't you buy steak from Nicos? Oh, I got to look in the rest of the chat. Razi said, whatever Nicos is selling, I'm buying unless it's a steak. We may have to wait a minute and find out what the answer to that is, unless
So
you
this is
Nicos,
because
already know what
I
that
have
means.
as a principle. Well, this is because I don't appreciate food poisoning, and this is why I cook my food. Razi finds this controversial. He doesn't cook his steak, or he cooks it for 10 seconds for each side, and he's constantly flirting for food poisoning. That's why that's the inside joke with steak.
I see. So Razi's either causing food poisoning or you are destroying perfectly good meat. I'm sure we're going to get both sides of that spectrum in the chat. But now Mary Aline has her answer, and thank you for that super chat. And yeah, again, my quick answer is Paul is right on. We should all be rock stars. Got to do it while you're young. Christopher Smith, the guitarist, says, talent, what's that? Well, talent, there is such a thing as talent. There's a bit of natural predisposition to certain skills. I was never going to be, Steve Vai. I was never going to be Ingui. Most I could be would be, a decent classic rock kind of cover band player. And I would have been happy with that if I'd had the good sense to do it while I was young. But for now, I'm going to settle for trying to become at least proficient podcaster. Paul, I'm glad you mentioned that a second career, assuming your finances are okay, needn't be bringing in the bacon. One more super chat. Ashley Shrugged has $1.99 and says, I'd buy whatever Nicos was selling.
So buy this advice. Thank you for buying for whatever saying. Here's one advice. Before someone decides to become a rock star, try being first someone who is on stage, even in front of 10 people. You'll realize it's way more stressful than you think. Not the performance, getting there on time, making sure, particularly if you're a singer, imagine worrying all the time. What if you get a rough throat and like these small things? Like I face these things when I'm about to talk to 20 people. I'm stressed days ahead that, I'm going to be well. So imagine if you know that you're going to give a concert to 80,000 people and they're there only for you. And you have to everything needs to be perfect. Now, of course, the reward is great, but this is not such simple and all, that should be super fun as it sounds. So Rockstar, it has its glamour, but I would bet it's one of the most difficult jobs to do.
I think you're right. Well. I think you're right, except I think you get used to the schedule, the stress. I only played in small clubs, but I remember that feeling of I should just get there 3 hours early in case anything goes wrong. Eventually, you kind of get more comfortable with that. Mary Aline is in with another super chat, $5, and says steak should be rare or medium rare at most. Nicos, I've got to ask you on that scale of rare, medium, well done, where do you, I'm intentionally being provocative because it's bringing in the super chat. Where do you fall?
I've read the research that says that if you constantly burn your food, you might face some health issues. If it weren't for that, I would always burn. But because apparently it's not super healthy to burn, I'm between well done and burned, somewhere there.
And that includes beverages?
That's mostly when it comes to meat and fish. And also, I regret nothing.
I regret nothing. Well, there's a good motto for all of us. Well, I'll tell you what, we didn't make 18 minutes. I'm going to make this quick. We got one more show coming up today. It's my show. That's all I'm going to say about that, except you need to hear it. I'm going to recap what Nicos said during his talk on communication and highly recommend that episode. I'm going to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, the film that swept the Oscars, and tell you why, as absurd as the film is, there is some heartening news out of those wins, and particularly the people involved. It's going to be a great show. You've got to be there. This guy knows what he's talking about because it's me. So yes, I am honored to be the aging rock star, and that's going to be in 3 hours. Do not miss that. Paul, Nicos, anything to say before we wrap up about your second careers or alternative career ideas?
I was sort of interested. Go on. Sorry, Nicos, go on.
Go on, because I haven't got anything clever to say at the moment.
Well, that's never stopped me. It was interesting hearing Robert. It's because it's pretty close to what he's doing anyway. And I was looking at my own list, and I was thinking, aside from Rockstar, obviously, the things that I want to do are just better versions of what I'm doing anyway. So it's interesting that it's not a complete life change.
Yes.
Nicos, I have one question for you. How do you put up with airport?
Sorry?
You travel a lot and you want to travel more. How do you put up with airports?
So the way I put up with airports is that lately I've collected as many miles that I can go in the lounge. I put my headphones, the noise canceling one, and I do some burst of deep work. They might be only be 40 minutes. I work particularly well in airports and at the airplanes. So this was the key. Thanks to Razi for introducing me to these AirPods. They have changed my productivity in airports and airplanes.
Cool, good.
Excellent. Real quick,
one last thing about the second career, and this will be my parting words. Because we live in times where people change careers so often, maybe, dear audience, ask this question to yourself, because who knows, this might actually be your career. People change careers fast. Our life changes fast with technology or whatever, things change. So this is not only a theoretical question. So ask yourself, what am I good at and what I enjoy? And what are other areas that you can apply this? Or if you are not happy in your current career, think about, if you start from scratch, where would you be good? So this is a very practical question, although it was a funny episode anyway.
Excellent. Yes, it answers the question, what's in it for you? Again, read her second career, think about your own life and how that applies. In the super chat, one more, Jack Schumann. We've got writers in the house, multiple writers now, says, dropping in to say hi, my second professions, see, we got a theme here, would be drummer in a rock band. And I love playing drums. I admire drummers. You got a good drummer, you got a good band. You got a bad drummer, you got a bad band. She also says, MMA fighter. Well, of course, we have our wrestling want to be as well. And actor. It sounds like you're very aligned with Paul, who, wants to be a writer, director, has been an actor. Outstanding. Thank you. See, the super chats keep coming in. We can't stop. Jonathan Honig is in with $9.99 and LOLs for the group. Thank you for that. I swear we're going to be done in less than half an hour. We got a minute and a half before Nicos has got to run. Thank you for the super chats. If you have already put them in, thanks. If you haven't yet, put them in. But more than that, if you're not already a member of the Ayn Rand Center UK, you know what to do at the top of the chat, or just browse to AynRandCenter.co.uk. They spell center funny like the Brits, R-E at the end. AynRandCenter.co.uk. Click to become a member. Make that happen. I'm telling you, my second career, which is kind of my fourth career, is doing exactly what I'm doing with this show today, recommending the works of Ayn Rand. And as Nikos said, consider this question for yourself. There are valuable insights to be found, whether you decide to change everything about what you're doing, or realize you are happy doing what you're doing, or make a few tweaks around the edges. It's a great question. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Nikos, for a great episode.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Nikos.
And everybody have a great day and a